Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier with a little bit of some of the speed action from Gulfstream Park on Saturday. We'll talk about the Grade 2 Princess Rooney. It is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint at 7 furlongs. You can bet this nice Gulfstream card with your own DRF Bets account. Sign up now, access $100 in free cash. Learn more at drf.com/bet. Let's take a look at the field for race number 12 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. It is the Grade 2 Princess Rooney. They're running for $250,000. We've got the defending champion in this race, Matt, right down towards the rail. The number 1 Curlin's Approval. Far and away, the best race of her career came in this race last year, and she loves Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, she really does. I mean, we always talk about horses for courses, but I mean, this is kind of the definition of a horse for course. You see, she's run at Gulfstream 14 times, 11 times in the exacta, 8 times victorious. She's a different animal when you get her away from Gulfstream. She's just sort of a middling, kind of an afterthought. You get her to Gulfstream, she's a monster. She just wants to destroy anybody that gets in her path. I understand that most recent start, it was off of a little bit of a layoff and was probably nothing more than a means to an end. Visually, you're not going to win a race any easier than that. She was absolutely geared down at the end. I have to be honest, I've never been a huge fan of Curlin's Approval, but when she's right, she's pretty darn good.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And as you mentioned, especially at Gulfstream Park, obviously, if she runs the Rooney from last year, she's going to win this race by a long way. But if I wanted to play devil's advocate, I think you could say, boy, that Hurricane Birdie was a tough loss to 100-to-1 shot in Jordan's Henny. She really didn't look great in the Royal Delta 2 starts back. And last time out off the layoff, well, very visually impressive. She was just able to get away with an easy lead. Rich Mommy, I thought, ran just as well to finish second that day. Let's talk a little bit about Rich Mommy, a horse that you've scored on in the past. Maybe pace compromised off a little bit of a break last time out. I really think the question is, at the end of the day, though, is Rich Mommy good enough to not only handle Curlin's Approval, but a couple of the other big names in this race?
You know, I think at her absolute best, she might be able to handle a horse like Curlin's Approval, but you're probably going to need Curlin's Approval to take a slight step back. My bigger concern with Rich Mommy is the distance. I'm just not convinced that 7/8 is really in her wheelhouse. I think she's more of a 3/4 kind. And really, in an instance like this, I think that kind of compromises her.
Always tough to discount anything from the Todd Bletcher barn. And the number 3, My Miss Taffet, is a perfect 3-for-3 sprinting. And she returned off a long layoff last time out in her first start against older horses in an optional claimer. And lo and behold, she popped a 90 Beyer speed figure. I didn't think she beat much in that race, however. And boy, it looked like she was under an all-out drive 3 furlongs from home to beat that field.
Yeah, again, it's kind of one of those things where you're either on board with the figures or you're on board with the visuals. And the visuals would suggest that she doesn't really stack up. But the figures would say, based on that 90, the highest last out buyer in the field, that she's a legitimate contender. I'm of the opinion that, you know what, in a race like this, okay, if I acknowledge that Approval, Ms. Locust Point, even Rich Mommy, I can't take all the favorites. And My Miss Taffet, she'd be the one that I would pitch.
If you believe pace makes the race, and if the Timeform U.S. pace projector is correct, then you must respect the number 2 Miss Locust Point, because as you see, they have Miss Locust Point out there on the lead, and that blue bar indicates that our friends at Timeform U.S. believes that this race will favor horses on or near the early lead. Miss Locust Point won the Barbara Fritchie at this 7-furlong distance 3 starts back. The Madison was just kind of a weird race where she kind of got bumped a little bit at the start. She didn't really show much speed or interest and really didn't finish very well. The Madison has come back a pretty strong race. Last time out in the Skip It, I'm not going to hold that race against her. It was over the extremely wet track at Pimlico. And look who she was in against. Vertical Oak is one of the best wet track horses in the country. If Miss Locust Point gets to an easy lead like this, she's very interesting at the 5-to-1 morning line.
I think that's the key, is her getting out to the front, because her best races have come when she's out right on the lead, just loving life, winging it. I understand that Skip It was a little bit disappointing, but again, you brought up the wet track and the fact that Vertical Oak is basically a fish. The Madison, I don't know that I want to hold that against her, simply because it was the first start off layoff, a little bit of a layoff, only months. If you get back to that Barbara Fritchie, I think she's a handful.
Let's talk about the 6, Treble, a little bit in here, and this is a very, very consistent filly. She's been on the board in 9 of 11 starts. She's been right there in a couple of her other races. Last time out in the winning colors, though, I thought she could not have had a better trip. There were 3 horses battling in front of her. Treble sat all by herself in behind. It looked like she was making a winning move on the outside, and she just couldn't go by. And I know that winner's okay. She came back to run second in the Roxalana Stakes at Churchill Downs with an 85 buyer. Maybe the addition of blinkers will help Treble focus a little more at the end of this race, and I can't argue with the price, 15-1 on the line.
Agreed. I think of the bigger numbers in here, the bigger prices, she's the most interesting one simply because she really hasn't done a heck of a lot wrong. You add the blinkers, hopefully that allows her to finish a little bit better and hopefully, in my opinion, get her closer, get her a little bit further into the run because I don't want her coming from as far back as she has been. And you're right, Miss Kentucky's a decent one. 2 starts back, a stroll in the park, the 3rd place finisher. She was a next out winner with an 86. The 4th place finisher in that winning colors came back and earned an 89. So she's been keeping decent enough company. The question becomes, do you think 7/8 works for her?
The 5 She Takes Heart was claimed for 62.5 out of her last race, and just look at those workouts since the claim. 3 bullets, and the one that wasn't a bullet was the last one, where she went a half mile in 45 and change. Something tells me she'll show a little bit of speed here.
Yeah, even with the blinkers off, I would have to agree with that. I don't know, though. The problem is, even if she's forwardly placed, I almost wonder if she's nothing more than a fly in the ointment for a horse like Miss Locust Point, because I don't think She Takes Heart is good enough to win a race like this, but she could compromise anyone that's forwardly placed just based on those workouts.
Story Embrace went fast early, kept right on going. The jockey had a little bit of a mental error towards the end of that race, and Stormy Embrace still won it. It was an 81 buyer. It was a far cry from what she's capable of running. Maybe it was the sloppy track. You go back to that 93 from 2 starts back at this distance, and then you note her nice attack outside post position. She's got a shot in here at a big price.
You know, I have to be honest, I've always been a fan of hers. I think Kathleen O'Connell does good work. My only concern with a horse like this, and I hate to just put a blanket statement over this, but many of these sort of horses that run at Tampa, when they face better horses, they just don't seem to class up. I think she's going to work at a good trip, and I think she's honest. I just don't think she's good enough to win in here.
Turf to dirt, route to sprint for the 8 Spanish Harlem, and that worked 2 starts back. She won by 6 with an 86 buyer speed figure. The 5th place horse out of that race came back to run an 87 buyer speed figure in her next start when finishing 2nd in a turf race, an optional claimer. Spanish Harlem, that was really the one and only chance she had an opportunity to sprint. Maybe that's what she wants all along.
I was going to say, it is interesting to note that that is the one time that she's gone one turn in her career, maybe with the exception of that Belmont race back in 2017. But I have to be honest, I've always kind of preferred her on turf, but clearly she can handle the main track. 7/8 of a mile, I think she's going to be a big number. I don't know if I love her win chances, but maybe underneath.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 2 Princess Rooney. Again, it is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. You're going with Curlin's approval to make it 2 Princess Rooneys in a row.
And it's a reluctant pick. It's because we're going over it. Just simply, I don't love Curlin's approval. Never have, probably never will. But I've got to acknowledge when she's at Gulfstream, she's really, really good. And I think the other 2 horses in here are Miss Locust Point as well as the 4-horse Rich Mommy. I've always loved Rich Mommy, but I just think 7/8 might be a problem. The most dangerous horse in the race to me is Miss Locust Point.
I believe we have a mandatory payout at Gulfstream Park closing day on Saturday. I'm kind of against Curlin's approval a little bit in here. I don't like her breaking from the rail. I just didn't like what I saw during the championship meet. I think Miss Locust Point can take these gate to wire. I'm hoping the time form pace projector is right, and I'm going 2, 3, 6, and 1. And I'd probably use the 2 as my main play in any kind of multis, the 3 and the 6 as backups. It's the 12th race at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, on Summative Speed Saturday. And again, you can play it with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get $100. Learn more at drf.com/bet. Approximate post time for the Princess Rooney is 5:30 Eastern on Saturday. Good luck.